See, I thought the celebrity cameo in the first one was kind of awesome, but this one, yeah, it's better. Hello, brothers. My name is Daidarius, and welcome to the review of Zombieland Double Tap. So, Zombieland Double Tap is the second Zombieland movie that I thought we will never get. So, the plot in this movie is quite simple as it was in the former movie. We have the four main characters: Tallahassee, Columbus, Wichita, and Little Rock. They have invaded the White House and now trying to make it their home for the time being. But unfortunately, Little Rock is kind of feeling left out or alone. She wants to meet people her own age and maybe even get a boyfriend. So lo and behold, she takes off to try and find a boyfriend, and now the rest of the guys have to try and find her before she gets herself killed. That is the movie. Then a lot of shit gets thrown down, a lot of vulgar language, a lot of dead zombies, a lot of dead people, a lot of awesome action and jokes, and well, here we are. So what did I like about this movie? First of all, I really enjoyed the acting. Now, first movie was a cult hit. It was funny, it was entertaining, and it also had some very, very poor acting. And by that, I mean that every line in that movie was just not delivered correctly or convincing or anything. It is. I saw the movie recently, and it just occurred to me how very poorly acted that movie is. But it doesn't matter because it is funny and entertaining as hell. However, in this movie, they're actually giving a shit. Now, I don't know if it's because the four main characters has been nominated and even Emma Stone managed to actually win an Academy Award, but apparently actually give a shit in here, which just elevates the movie a lot. Now, that being said, the humor in this movie, I will say, is better than the first one. It is funnier, it just has too many intelligent jokes, and also the usage of the rules in the background here and there are very well timed. We even get a Shaun of the Dead moment where Woody Harrelson's Tallahassee and Jesse Eisenberg's Columbus are actually meeting their mirrored self. So if you have seen Shaun of the Dead, then you know exactly what I mean, but it is actually a very, very funny and entertaining scene. And also the play on rules versus what's the other person. I won't spoil it, but it is very, very fun, and just the humor throughout this movie is very well put together. Also, the fact that I managed to stay within theme. By that I mean the type of humor that's set in the beginning of the movie just gets carried throughout the whole movie. Also, the gore effects in this movie are holy shit, especially the blood splatter. Now, I don't know if they were practical or digital, but if they were digital, they were fucking awesome. And if not, they were still fucking awesome. But the effects in this movie are actually pretty well done, considering that they had to make a whole wasteland like the White House or a place later on in the movie with a big tower. It is surprisingly well put together, and you just enjoy the scenery, not because it is beautiful, but it is just detailed enough that you kind of buy that rich story that the environment tells in this movie. Also, the plot in this movie I actually think is more tightly constructed. There's actually more of a purpose here than it was before, and people actually go through more of a character arc than it did in the last movie. Now, I know they did go through a character arc in the former movie, so they actually made a bond together, but here it is more of an individual character arc than it is a group character arc. You also get a ton of references, but it don't feel forced. There's even meta references to the former movie, and especially the fact that it took place 10 years ago and was made in 2000. There's just some great references in it, let me just say that. And also the action scenes are as brutal as ever. There is some tight choreography in these fight scenes, especially in the middle of the movie. There is a great fight scene where they have to fight off two zombies at once, and I just enjoyed the hell of it. And there was also a lot of funny beats throughout that action scene. Which also something I admire about this series is that even though that the world is very dark and dire and the action scenes are very, very brutal, they're still kind of lighthearted because they just take the whole situation so lightly that there are zombies everywhere, but we kind of know how to kill them, so let's just have fun while doing so. And you also do really feel like the characters has evolved through the past 10 years. Their bond has actually become tighter, and Tallahassee and Columbia has actually bonded. I wouldn't say have grown a tighter bond, because they didn't really have that much of a bond in the former movie. They're just, you know, kind of bouncing off each other to make funny dialogues. But here the bond has actually grown. I also really enjoyed the climax, even though that is kind of a retelling of the former movie, but the climax of the climax is very satisfying. And also the mid-credit scenes and the after-credit scenes, and yes, there are both of them in this movie, are funny as hell. So please make sure that you stick around to see both of those. So is there really something in this movie I didn't really appreciate? Not really, because this movie is exactly what you expect it to be. Now there might be too much of rehearsing of the former movie in this movie, and there's also one joke where they're going through the rules that kind of overstays its welcome, but it just managed to still be funny throughout the whole scene, so you don't really mind as much. And then there's characters that gets introduced, then dumped, and then reintroduced throughout the movie that feels kind of clanky, and the story itself doesn't really have that much to offer. Hell, the movie itself doesn't really have that much to offer besides the character development, because you won't really get an expanding of the world. We know what the world is. The world has gone to shit, it's overrun by zombies, people trying to stay alive. But with that being said, I actually enjoyed the hell out of this movie. It is funnier than the former one. It is better produced than the former one. The sets and the effects are amazing. The acting is actually quite good. The action is actually quite good. The plot constricts itself to let the comedy in itself just flow free. Now there might be too much rehearsing of the former movie. There isn't really that much depth in this movie, and you don't really get much more out of this movie than what you expect if you have watched the first one. However, that being said, this is probably one of the funniest movies I have seen this year in cinema. And if you are a fan of the first one, then you really need to see this one. If you're not a fan of the first one, then this might not win you over, even though it is a better constructed movie. So keep that in mind. However, I will say that Zombieland Double Tap, it is worth watching in cinema. Entertainment guaranteed. So Zombieland, have you seen it? What did you think about it? And how do you think it ranks amongst the first one? And also, I know this is a super short review, but this is a super simple movie. So simple movie, simple review, kind of fit together. Whatever you think, come around me. Thoughts, and as always, until I see you in the next video, remember to stay awesome. Bye. Fuck, they're coming.